Good. Okay, like I said, this will be the last organized class at 8 o'clock, as far as I know, in Tishrei, because I'm going to be traveling to the Rebbe tonight. So I'll be there until after Sukkot. And like I said, Be'ezer Hashem, I'm going to bring a laptop, but who knows if I'll have a connection, who knows if I'll have time to record, because things are pretty, thank God, pretty hectic over there, and there's a lot what to do. And there's not that much time to organize and to prepare classes. So we'll see. All right, we already learned about Rosh Hashanah, and we learned the main thing of Rosh Hashanah is making God a king. And then there's a secondary thing in Rosh Hashanah, which is doing tshuva. It's one of the 10 days of tshuva. And then there's the sounding of the shofar, which that's the mitzvah. We learned the same thing as about, that was the first sikha we learned. Then we learned the second sikha, that there's also these three aspects of Yom Kippur. There's the essence of Yom Kippur. Just like in Rosh Hashanah, the essence is making God a king. The essence of Yom Kippur is that the day itself brings forgiveness. The day itself opens up this door and the window to the connection that always exists between God and the Jewish people. A connection which cannot be blemished by any sins. So it's always there all the time. It's not that in this way Yom Kippur does not do anything new. Exactly the opposite. It reveals something that's always new. It's always new. It can never be changed. It can never be old. The essential attachment, just like God, the essential attachment between the Jewish people and the creator of the universe, which that, like we say, doesn't make any sense, but that's the whole essence. Where did sense come from? Sense is a creation of God. So this essential aspect, this connection of God, is the essence of good. Right? Like some people, they're willing to give their lives for their children, for their country, when they see something really good. So they don't make any calculations. So that's the thing of Yom Kippur. The Yom Kippur is the day itself reveals this essential connection between the Jews and God. And it says the day itself brings forgiveness. And then there's of course there's Yom Kippur is also part of the days of tshuva. So that's the thing of tshuva, returning to God, returning to your essence. And then there's the commandment of the day, which the commandment of the day is fasting. You're supposed to fast. And fast, and the other 4 things that you're supposed to do, not to wear shoes, not to wash for that day. We said that brings. Now then, after that, we learned the Sikha. So we finished the Yom Kippur, and God should help it that we'd have a meaningful and a successful Yom Kippur this year. Yom Kippur, by the way, is not such a serious holiday. It's not the day of judgment as Rosh Hashanah is. It's the day of forgiveness. God forgives us. So in a way, it's a happy day. True, we don't dance around. It's a very deep happiness and positiveness that we have on that day. And it could be, when you remember your sins and things like that, so you could be crying and weeping, but you should know that for sure God is going to judge you favorably. It's the day of forgiveness. And so that's Yom Kippur. Then we have the day of the holiday of happiness. 7 days, 8 days, basically. If you count what's called Simchat Torah, 7 days of 8 days of happiness. And one of the things we do on this holiday is that we sit in the sukkah. That's why it's called holiday of Succot. And the sukkah envelops us. It says Yaminu Techabken. It's like God's right arm is embracing us. And the sukkah, in fact, the minimum measurements of the walls of a sukkah are like an arm. It's like two sides have to be complete. Let's see how do I get this picture over here. 2 sides have to be complete, and 1 tepach is enough. All you have to have is 3 walls, and the 3rd wall only has to be the size of 1 tepach. Okay, it has to be 3 tefachim from the thing. You can learn them from the wall, but in any case, that's what it has to be. So it's like God's When you sit in the sukkah, it's this encompassing aspect of God that surrounds us. And even more, it says that the schach, the word schach is samach, which is the gematria 60, and then chaf chaf, which is 2020. So 60, 2020 is 100. That corresponds also to the 100 shofar blasts that we sound on Rosh Hashanah. 100. You can count them. Tkiya, Shvorim, Tkiya. You count them all together, it ends up to be 100. And also it says that the schach is made from the schach, that's the branches and things, that's made from the smoke of the incense that the Kohen Gadol had on Yom Kippur. The Kohen Gadol would go into the Holy of Holies and he would light this incense there, bring the incense in with fire, and he put it on the fire, and he would light it up inside of the, and that smoke, it says, Ki ba'anan evor al kapor, it says the ba'anan, the cloud. So it says that the schach is the revelation from this cloud of forgiveness that was on Yom Kippur. The high priest would go into the Holy of Holies and would bring this incense in there. And that was one of the steps of Yom Kippur. And that's it. Okay. So, but then the other commandment is that so that embraces us, that surrounds us, and we know that God is always surrounding us and always protecting us. And I'll tell you a little story. This was, it must have been maybe, I don't know, 8 years ago, 9 years ago. I was by the Rebbe. I took the Lulov and Esrog, and I stood. I went to Manhattan. In Chabad, we go to the streets and ask people, "Are you Jewish?" Right, Lulov and Esrog, are you Jewish? And if they are, take the Lulov and Esrog. And people do it. It's really quite amazing. And the non-Jews are also very happy. You know, a lot of them. What is this? What does it mean? You know, especially the blacks. You know, they can have wonderful, amazing conversations with them. You know, what is it? They want to know all the details, and that's really beautiful. It's really nice. But here's another story. I mean, that was just my experience. So anyway, I took my lulav and etrog, and I stood at the exit. I think it was Union Central Station. I don't remember what station it was. Anyway, I stood. There's this Chabad. There's one place that they have this big sukkah. And there's also the sukkah is right near the exit for one of the subway stations. So people are pouring out, you know, they're just pouring out from this thing. And there's like that's big, long stairs, and people are pouring out. So I'm just standing there with the lulav and etrog, and anyone who looks vaguely like Jewish, are you Jewish, sir? Are you Jewish? So they came up to me, there came a whole bunch of what they're called punkists. I don't know what they're called, punk. There was one time it was very popular, you know, punk rock in America. And they had all sorts of piercings and metal, you know, things all over. And their hair was like, you know, in a point, and they had like mohawks, and it was different colors, and they were, you know, wearing all these leather things with studs on them and things like that. So the kids came out. They were, you know, 15, 16, 17. Nice looking kids. You could see clear. I mean, except it wasn't for the tattoos and things. So they were all like blonde, and they had blonde kids. You could see that they weren't Jewish. At least it looked like they weren't Jewish. So, but the one thing you could see that they were is bored. They were really bored. So they came out, and they're all talking to each other, and they have these studs and all these things come out, and they look like sort of, you know, they try to look scary, or I don't know what they try to look like. But they came out, and they saw me standing, and then they came over to me, and they said, "What is that? What are you?" So I said, "I'm a Jew. I'm a Jew. It's a Jewish holiday. It's a Jewish holiday today." "Really? What holiday? What is that thing you're holding in your hand?" So I said, "Oh, this is a commandment from God, you know, to show that God is not just up in heaven, he's down here on earth. And we take these, and what is it? It's a lulav." And so one of them says, "Oh, that's organic. You know, the lulav and an etrog. It's organic." "Oh, yeah, organic." You know. So all of a sudden I got this idea, and I said to them, there was about 20 of them. And so one of them said to me, you know, "So what is this holiday? What are you celebrating?" So all of a sudden I got this idea, and I was standing with my back to the sukkah. I said, you see this booth here? This booth, we sit in it, we eat our meals in this booth. And we remember that when God took the Jews out of Egypt, that he surrounded them with clouds of protection. It says clouds of honor, ananei hakavod. And he surrounded them with these clouds to protect them. I said, it goes to tell us, teach us that if a person wants to do something good, that God will help him, will protect us, will protect him. I said, and even more, and they were sort of listening, and they were sort of getting ready to go. And I said, really, the big lesson is coming to tell us is that nobody is ever alone. I said those words. I didn't know what I was, I just said, nobody, and it's true, nobody's ever alone. As soon as I said these words, all of a sudden, all of them, all 20, they all got silent. It was the most surprising. They all sort of fell silent, and they all, they sort of, all their eyes sort of looked up a little bit, and one of them said, "That's really nice. That's really nice." And the girls, a couple of girls, "Yes, that is really beautiful. That's really true." So from that, I said, and the guy started shaking my hands. I told the girls, "I'm sorry, I'm a religious Jew. I don't shake hands with girls." I said, "Not even Jewish girls. I just don't shake hands." The guys, 100%, will shake twice. And they said, "That's a really good message. That's a really nice thing." And then they all left. From this, I sort of surmised that people are alone. People feel alone. People feel alone, and they don't know what they're doing. The world is very sort of, overwhelming, huge, and people are very small. And so they grab at anything to give them a little bit of security, which is, if it's a good thing, then it's a good thing, but a lot of people, they grab at it's a not good thing. So the point is saying here that God is with you. You don't have to be afraid. You can grab at good things. You can grab at good things. You can take your time. The world is not as scary as we think, and it's not as alone as we think. Okay. So here we have the Lulov. It says, by the Lulov, you can find something. So when we would take the Lulov and the Etrog and the Hadass and the Arava, as it says that these four types are represented, four different types of Jews. There's Jews that have what's called taste and smell, good taste and good smell. Taste represents the Torah, and smell is like the commandments because it's above understanding. And that's represented by the etrog. Etrog is also very expensive. And then there's Jews that have neither taste or smell. That's represented by the arava, Jews that have neither. And then there's Jews that they only do the commandments, right? A little bit of Torah maybe, but the main thing is they do the commandments, and that's represented by the Hadass, which the Hadass comes from. I'm sorry. Jews, they only have the commandments. That's represented by the Hadass. The Hadass is a good smell, and it doesn't have any taste. And then there's the Jews that have only learning Torah, and that's represented by the Lulov. The Lulov comes from the date tree, which dates have a good taste, but they don't have any. And that represents the Jews that have the Torah. So the four things that we take, we make the blessing al natilas Lulov. The blessing that we make on these four, surprisingly, is taking the Lulav, right? The commandment of taking the Lulav. Now, the Lulav is, like we said, it's the highest of all of them. So that's sort of a reason it sort of sticks up, but it's not the most favorable of all of them. The best one is the etrog. The etrog has both taste and smell. That's Jews that have both Torah and both commandments. Why do we make the blessing on the lulav? So according to this, we could say, okay, listen, that's where the metaphor sort of ends. But the Rebbe says, no, it's not so. This is really very important to this metaphor of the lulav representing people who mainly have Torah. So because that's the main thing of the Jewish people. The main thing of the Jewish people is those who learn the Torah. The rabbis, their main thing is learning the Torah, because the backbone and the essence of Judaism is the Torah. And of course, the commandments are very important. The commandments, the Judaism is the only religion that has commandments. All the religions have some sort of a Bible or whatever. They have their writings or their scripts or whatever it is, their ancient texts, whatever they have. But Judaism, how do they have? Of course, the Torah comes directly from God. No even religion even claims that the millions of people saw God give the Torah to them. So but most important is that the Torah, first of all, is an inner connection to God, an inner connection, because when you learn the Torah, you take it inside of you and you understand it. But also the Torah is the source of all the commandments. Without the Torah, you have no Judaism, there's no commandments, there's no definition of what a Jew is, right? No definition of what a Jew is. Says the Rebbe, there's also another thing is that so that's represented by the Lulov. Therefore, the Lulov is the main thing. Those Jews who their main thing is Torah. Of course, they do the commandments, but their main thing is learning the Torah. Likuti, according to this, now we can understand by the Lulov, we find also another thing which is not by the other four types, and that is that the Lulov moves. Then you from Nanuin, the Lulov moves. Hagam as the Holech of a Hova to all the even though that you have to really move all the types, right? There's some people that move around. The Chabad just stays in one place. We move it right, left, up, down. When we say the Hallel prayer. But the main thing that really moves when we do all of these movements with the Lulav and the Esra, the main thing that really moves is the Lulav. And even more, it says that the Lulav has to be higher than the other two types, than the Hadas and the Arava. It has to be higher than them so that you can see it move. Kadei Ninua. Says the souls as they are above, the soul without a body, they're called standing. They stay in one place. But by means of the fact that the soul comes down into the physical world, as by means of that, as the Torah and these mitzvahs that it does, then it starts to be called mahalchim, walking. This is a level which is called a mahalach. Well, comes also from the prophecy of Ezekiel. It says, I was walking by all the standing ones. Ezekiel said, I was like walking, all the angels are standing. That way of going from without any limit, the soul can only reach when it's down here in the physical world. That is what is represented by the etrog, and that's why Jewish people also move when they pray or when they learn Torah. You see, very interesting. When a Jew does a commandment, right? When a Jew does a commandment, he doesn't necessarily move. He stands still, puts on tefillin, does a commandment. But when a Jew prays, or when a Jew learns Torah, he moves. They say that there's a story by the Rambam. That's what they say. A story that the Rambam was once presented. Excuse me, one second. The Rambam was once presented with a king, and he said with like 20 identical children. Excuse me, 20 identical children. And he said, you say that the Jews are the chosen people, the Jews are different from everybody else. Tell me who's a Jew, who's not a Jew. The king purposely chose children that were identical, looked all the same. So the Rambam said, okay, I'll show you how to do it. Give each one a prayer book in a language that everybody understands, right? They all understand a similar language, all in whatever it is, Egyptian, whatever the thing was. Rambam lived in Egypt for a while. Give them all a prayer book, and let's watch them. So they all watched them. Only one of them, everybody read, but one of them moved a little bit. So the one that's moving, that's the Jew. Because a Jew, when he prays, something happens and he moves back and forth. And sometimes it's really exaggerated, but nevertheless, in a way, it can't be too exaggerated. If we really felt what God is, then we would The idea of going back and forth means you're not just going out of yourself. You're in the world. Okay, this is the whole idea, like a flame. Like it says in the Zohar, that the reason why Jews move when they learn Torah, because it says Ner Hashem Nishmas Adam, the soul of a Jew is like a fire. And Hashem is Gleichen Suaner. A fire is something like a lamp. A lamp used to, the lamps then used to have oil lamp, right? Fire. Punkte, just like a fire, it moves back and forth. Shakelzich, it moves back and forth because it wants to go up to its source, fire. It says the source of fire is this sort of sphere around the world. That's also why the soul moves at the time when it learns Torah or when it prays, because the soul, it wants to get closer to God. And God, so to speak, is not, God creates the physical. He's, if you want to call it, above the physical. In order to make clear and to clarify the some idea in Torah, as a person has to deepen his mind, and when he deepens his mind, this brings him closer to the source of the Torah. The Torah is not like, if you go into a library, right, you don't see people moving back and forth when they're learning, whatever it is, Plato or somebody. They're learning, not moving back and forth when you learn mathematics. So, because you're coming close, the Torah is the wisdom of God. And this is grasped by the understanding of the Torah and the inside of it. Therefore, it moves back and forth. When you learn Torah, it's coming closer to God. How much more so when you pray? This idea of going without any limit, this comes to, by means of this, you come to what's called devekut, clinging to the Creator, which God is truly unlimited. And because the true connection to God is by means of learning Torah, and by means of Torah, the main thing of moving without any limit, so therefore, the thing of moving back and forth is the Lulov, and the Lulov, as we said before, that represents those Jews that have mainly the taste, mainly because the Lulov comes from a date tree. And this clinging from the Torah, this brings about also moving when they do the commandments, because when you do the commandments, then you really use your body. And which commandment, especially this commandment of moving back and forth, the Lulov and the Esrog. This movement of the Torah doesn't mean that this learning is unlimited moving because of learning Torah, but nor oich as in them limit. The learning the Torah itself, there is something of moving. It's not that Torah causes you. The Torah itself is in a way unlimited. Why is the Torah limited? In two ways. Number one, learning Torah, a person has to increase every day, increasing your knowledge, increasing your awareness of the Torah. You have to, by learning Torah, a person has to tsu kuman in learning Torah. You have to add on all the time in your learning of Torah, which this is one of the differences between prayer and Torah. In prayer, every day we say the same exact thing, except the holidays and Shabbos. But in Torah, every day you have to add on. Number two, right? What does the Torah do? I mean, of course, when you went into, for instance, when people went into the Holy Temple, what did they see? It says they would see and they would feel God. Now, God never changes. God never changes. And people would go with tremendous happiness. Why? Because it's like truth, right? Truth is a thing that never changes. But love is something that never changes. A person loves his children, loves his parents, loves his good friends, this is a thing that never changes. Ideally, it's supposed to be. And it's a thing that's always fresh and new because it's so deep and alive. Things that are really deep and eternal, that's what was supposed to be. If Adam hadn't eaten from the tree, then the world would be a very happy place. We'd feel truth all the time. We'd feel why we're being created, with how special we are. So that's what the Torah is. The Torah comes from this essence of God. So therefore it says Torah, we always have to add on. That's one thing. Number two, a person, a person, very interesting law, a person cannot really, internalize the Torah unless he makes mistakes. But in order to understand the ideas of Torah, you have to have a going back and forth. You have to think, oh, I understand this. And all of a sudden you realize, oh, wow, I guess I didn't understand so well. That's the whole idea of the Talmud also. You see in the Talmud that everybody's name that's mentioned in the Talmud, almost everybody, they had the power to raise the dead. And there were amazing miracles that were done by the people who learned the Torah. And the people that did raise the dead. And people that they went into heaven when they were still alive, Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi and things. Incredible miracles that they made. And you see that they were arguing about these little details in the Torah. Why? Because there weren't just little details in the Torah. This is like a brain surgeon, and let's say you have brain surgeons all around this person, and they say, should I cut over here? Don't cut over there. You have to cut over there. They do this right. You go to school to learn exactly what to do, how to do. There's different, because it's a living thing that has to go back and forth. First of all, your person comes to one idea, and then all of a sudden he realizes, no, maybe the idea is greater. And then you start realizing, you start to learn like the Tosfot, and you learn the Rosh and the Ran and the Rif, and these different geniuses that understand, because the Torah is a living thing. That afterwards we can see, of course, so learning the Torah just for the sake of learning is only for the Jews. Non-Jews are allowed to learn the Torah only as far as to know how to do the 7 Noahide commandments better. And then the 7 Noahide commandments are immense. I mean, it's a whole huge spectrum which covers every aspect of life, but not exactly the same thing as the Torah or the commandments. But the Jewish people, there's a special commandment just to learn the Torah. By learning Torah, as he always is coming to a higher and a deeper and a different understanding than what he had before. That's the whole thing of learning Torah. So that means going back and forth. That's alive. That the thing is alive. According to what we said before, we can understand an amazing thing. Like them, according to the Midrash, that the Lulov hints at learning the Torah. So lead them, according to, just by way, I just want to say something. The whole thing of learning the Talmud and going back and forth is to come to a conclusion. When a conclusion is reached, and that's the whole idea of the Talmud, that conclusions are reached. It's not just say, oh, see, they're arguing, they don't know what they're talking about. In the end, there's a conclusion that's reached. You have a better conclusion, you have a better idea. Let's see if it stands up to the criterion. Let's see if it stands up to the criterion. If somebody asks questions and you know how to answer the question. Like we said, according to the principles that the Torah is learned by. Vigedar Friya, like we read Friya, like we said before, that this whole idea of the taking of the 4 Daled meaning of the unification of all these different types of Jews in order that they can be one thing, totally unified, one Jew with the other. This shows that each one, so to speak, negates himself to the other. Harmony. If a person is an egotist and he wants to stick out, like you have a whole big orchestra, right? And the bassoon wants to impress his mother or something that's sitting in the crowd. So he plays a little bit off tune, and sometimes he plays whatever he wants, he plays a little bit louder. So that wrecks up the whole unity of the whole thing. The whole same thing with the Jews. Every Jew has his own nature, his own purpose, what he has to contribute. But you can't contribute things that are not part of the whole plan, right? To be an egotist. And this is Vidas is just like it is spiritually, also it is physically. That each and every one of the 4 different types on the Lulov and the Etrog are different, each one and the other. And this shows an idea of bittul, of surrender, of the whole desire is to be harmonious with others, to contribute your part, but to allow others to contribute their part, to know that you have something special to contribute to mankind. But on the other hand, so does everybody else. So you have to let everyone do their thing as well and be helpful to others to do so. That's the idea of unity, and especially by the Jews. If there's unity by the Jews, unity can spread to the whole entire world. Where do we mainly see this idea of surrender? The one that's the highest. The greater that a person is, the more a person can be egotistical. And therefore you have to warn and be very, very careful, because in the esrog, which the esrog is the most important of the four, so it has a taste and it has a smell. It's also, the name also hints at the idea of bittul. Etrog is al teve'eni regel gaiva. Al teve'eni regel gaiva. Don't bring me, it's a sentence in Psalms. They say that that's the last words of the Baal Shem Tov. So what do we say? The four types, this hints at the necessity for harmony, the necessity for surrendering your ego, your false ego, and contributing what is missing, but also encouraging others to also to contribute what's missing. You don't have to control the whole show. Says Etrog already hints at this thing of humility. The main one we have to watch out for are the people who know Torah. The people who know the Torah, on one hand, they're the most valuable. The Torah is the most valuable thing in Judaism. It's the essence of Judaism. But these people, they're the tallest of all. And they could think that they're better than everybody else. Like we said before, that the Lulov, there is a good quality over the esrog, because what? It has a taste, but it doesn't have any smell. Therefore, the Lulov is a special hint over the thing of surrendering your false ego. And thus, this is expressed in the fact which we don't take the fruit of the palm tree, but you take this branch, or the leaf in this case, the leaf of the palm tree. This shows on a certain humility. A person is similar to a tree. Just 1 second. Yeah. A person is similar to a tree. And in our case, what the Torah is what is intellect, right? So intellect, which is the main essence of what a mensch is, of a person. A person, his main thing is that he has intellect, right? Animals can do all sorts of tricks, but animals can't, right? They come up with ideas, solutions, intellectual solutions. That you're given superos. Says the main thing of the person is intellect. The intellect is compared to the fruits. The fruits are the main thing of a tree. Therefore, especially intellect, bazundus, especially intellect, is compared to a tamar, to a date tree, which the main thing of the dates, they have taste and no smell. That's the main thing of the Torah, we said, is taste. Tam also means understanding. Like we said in the Midrash, it says that in the Midrash also it compares the dates tree to Torah. Dates are compared to Torah. The leaves are compared to the leaves of the tree. They also have something special. They protect the fruits. Azoi is also the same thing in intellect. The intellect, for a person, the main thing of the intellect, this is the fruits. A person has beautiful ideas, and the going back and forth, the arguments which bring to this conclusion, which this takes away the questions and all the contradictions. This is something like the leaves on the truth, the leaves on the tree. So the fruits of the tree, what do we say? A man is like a tree, Adam Eitz Sadeh, and the main thing of a tree is the fruits. Same thing, the main thing of a man is his intellect, the ideas that he comes to, his conclusions that he comes to. The arguments that bring to these conclusions, that's like the leaves of the tree, right? People come, let's say, you have a fantastic idea, comes like all these religions in the world or communism or whatever, all these ideas, fantastic ideas, deep ideas. There's whole books that are written about them, but they're false, they're wrong. But you can't say that they're wrong. You can't come up with a contradiction. No arguments involved, right? They won't let you argue. You can't argue. You want to argue, get out, right? No way to argue. And so it says good. So if there's no arguments, that's in a way a very good thing. You hold on to your ideas. Nobody's going to knock your comfort zone down. But the bad thing is that you could be wrong. You could live your whole life being wrong. So that what protects the fruits, protects your ideas to make them sure that they're right, are the leaves. The leaves protect the fruits. The leaves in this case are the arguments going back and forth. What is right and what is wrong? What is true? By the nature of a person he gets a tremendous pleasure when he has the right ideas. And he gets he has an idea, he reaches some sort of a conclusion. The conclusion from the idea. When a person is in middle of arguing back and forth before he comes to a conclusion, by choosing which of and taking away, choosing the truth and taking away all these questions that he has, so he hasn't got any pleasure. Exactly the opposite. When a person is arguing back and forth, so it could be that he's wrong. One of the most uncomfortable things is to be wrong, especially if you're wrong in public, right? You don't want everybody to see your faults. So it says, therefore, a person, when he's arguing back and forth, if he's really open, so then he's not going to have any, how do you say, egotism so much. Because it could be that he's totally wrong, right? He's totally wrong. And this is the hint at the kapastomorim. That's what the whole idea of taking the leaves of the palm tree. And that's the lulov, the leaves of the palm tree. A person always has to understand that we're always holding by the leaves. That no matter how deep a person can understand in the Torah, you have to understand that there's always going to be something that could be deeper. The Torah is like, they say by Isaac Newton. Isaac Newton is a tremendous mind. He said, there's a physics and light and things like the motion. He said that it was tremendous ideas that he had. He said that he feels like he was just walking at the edge of a huge ocean of knowledge, and he just picked up one little pebble. If that's the way it is in physical knowledge and the knowledge of the Torah, how much more so? How much more so? In other words, we know what the commandments are. That's no doubt about it. But to understand the depth of the Torah, to understand the depth, it says Moshiach is going to come, and he will explain to us the depth of all the commandments. We'll always do the commandments. Jewish people will always keep Shabbos, and they'll always put on tefillin, and they'll always eat kosher, and all these, right? But the depth of them and the inner connection, the understanding of them, there's no end to this. This is concealed from the eyes of everyone. And this is, so therefore you should always be like the leaves. That's the lulav. The lulav is not the fruits. Is not the end conclusion. You always have to feel that the Torah is infinitely, infinitely deep. And that what we can understand is just scratching the surface. The conclusion we have, the conclusions, the commandments, etc., that certainly we have. That's not going to change. But the understanding part of it, the Torah part of it, that'll bring us in, that's behind us, inside of it, then there's no end to that. This, therefore, when a person understands that whatever he understands in Torah is just a little bit, he said that takes away his egotism and his highness, which comes from knowing the Torah. A person knows the Torah, he can say, I'm the greatest. Right? Exactly the opposite. This, what a person knows, when a person knows that the ultimate truth of the Torah is so incredibly deep, this is what brings about a bittul, a surrender. This is also what's hinted at as kapos tamorim. The kapot means Kapot means that they're zusammengebunden, that they're bound together. Kapot means they're all put together. From Lishon kafiyat, they're all pushed together. There is nit kein abgesundert. You should know that you're not a separate thing in yourself, but what he is by means of your bittul, therefore you're united with everybody else. There's an amazing, terrible story that's told in the Gemara about a person called Yeravam ben Navad. Yeravam ben Navad, he's even mentioned in the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos that he is the example of the worst Jew you could possibly have. He's the worst Jew could possibly. He said he sinned and he made everybody else sin. But he knew the whole Torah. He knew the Torah in a deeper way, a more inner way than anybody else in his generation. And he was tremendous, a tremendous genius, to the point where even a prophet came to him. We talked about this, the prophet Achai Shiloni, and this is right after King Solomon died, and said, okay, to prevent the Jewish people from falling apart, because King Solomon left a son, Rechavam, that was not a good king. He said, in order to take the 10 tribes, you're going to be the king over all of them. But serve God. He said, oh no, of course I will, of course. And he went and he made these 10 tribes, and he was afraid that people might go down to Jerusalem, to the Holy Temple. So he put guards there, and he made 2 golden calves. He went out of his mind. He made 2 golden calves, and the Jewish people like idolatry. And they worshiped these 2 golden calves for like 250 years. And finally, in the end, he did all these terrible sins. And God even said to him, listen, you're such a tremendous Torah scholar, and you had good intentions, you didn't want to lose it, whatever it was. God said, I'll find excuse for everything. I'll be able to excuse all the terrible sins that you did. Just repent, say that you're wrong, and if you do, it's going to be me and you and King David together in heaven. So he said, oh yeah, me and King David together, and with God, yeah. He said, well, who's going to be first, me or King David? So God says, King David, David Avdi. He said, no, I'm not going to do it. If I'm not number 1, I'd rather be in hell, number 1, than be in heaven, number 2. And there was his ego, because of his knowledge, because of his greatness, his ego drove him crazy. Says that's the whole idea of a person that's very high as the Torah. The Lulov represents Torah learning. That's what we said in finished learning. The Torah. And even though the Lulov is only the leaves, and the leaves are the arguments that bring us and protect the truth of the Torah, says that nevertheless a person can come to be an egotist. Because the more that a person has this surrender, the higher that a person can reach. That's why it says by Beit Hillel, that says that the law was always like them, because they were very humble. The teaching from this is that you have to be like a Lulov. You have to devote yourself to Torah, but you also, when you learn the Torah, you also have to think about, when you're learning the Torah, you have to think about nothing else, only learning the Torah. But by means of this, you have to, at the same time, hold on to this humility. Is this right? Did I do right? Here, 1 second. Yes. Like we said previously, yes. Let's just finish. Here we go. Just 1 second. That all the 4 types, that they have to be united all together. The Lulav, the Etrog, all the different types of Jews that don't know anything, the Jews that are the highest, until the highest type of Jews. In other words, if those Jews, even and if you don't have one type, it's not kosher. The Lulav and Etrog, for instance, the Arava, these are Jews that have nothing. They have no Torah in their commandments, but you have to also join them together by means of Torah, and that will unite all the Jewish people. And the times when we learn Torah, it says this will affect when he goes out, that will be able to do things which are unlimited. This is, by the way, a thing. It says in the future, when as God sounds the big shofar, that everybody's going to get special powers from God to bring out all of their potential. And we'll realize that everything that we do is only from the power of God. Our Creator will give us new powers. So as the Rebbe says, one second, if a person thinks that everything he does is just coming from God, so that'll weaken him a little bit. He's got no sort of feeling of accomplishment there. It's all being done by God. It's no, exactly the opposite. If you feel that your energy is coming from an infinite source, so you have infinite responsibility, and it gives you infinite potential to go out of yourself. Now, infinite doesn't mean all of a sudden you become, whatever it is, a Superman or something, whatever it is. Even Superman had his limitations. He couldn't be at two places at one time. Here we're talking about when a person does something and he has God's help, then the how do you say, even the sky is not the limit. There is no limit to the good that you can do, but good is not something that can be measured in a physical way. It can't be measured in a physical way, even though it expresses itself in physical. Like, for instance, the Holy Temple. The Holy Temple wasn't bigger than every other place. It wasn't more splendid than any other place necessarily. Right? It could be that there are buildings that were, the Taj Mahal, I don't know, could be nicer. But it had this feeling of godliness in it. And so it is with that's the whole idea of moving the Lulov. The moving has to take also the other three types also. This is the doing of the commandment. That also the service of, even when you're doing mundane things, optional things, eating, sleeping, etc., the whole course of the day, that everything moves, everything is vibrant and dynamic, because it's all part of serving the Creator. That's why we're here. A person goes higher and higher. That's the whole idea of the Moshiach. Moshiach is going to bring everyone to serve only the Creator, because the Creator is creating everyone. Everyone in the world, every Gentile will feel tremendously important, knowing that the Creator of the universe is personally creating him or her, and that every moment is just an adventure. When a person works, and here he's talking about the Jews. But I was just speaking about everybody. Here he's talking about the Jews. When a person works, haravet is davtacha, and if you do work hard at learning the Torah and bringing this unity into other types of Jews, and also into all of your mundane things that you do in life, that this yagatu umatzate, if you work, for sure you're going to have good results. This is matzata, if you work, you will find success. You find the things usually that you're not expecting. You walk down the street, look at this, what did I find, right? I found over here, look, a diamond, I found $1 million to find this. Durch them, by means of this, a person can come to a revelation from the inside of the Torah. That's the whole idea of the Mashiach. Mashiach is the whole idea from Metzia. It's a how do you say, like finding something. It's like something we're not going to expect. You have to learn the Rambam, and you learn what the criteria of Mashiach is. But nevertheless, when Mashiach, so we'll have to know to recognize who Mashiach is, right? It has to be somebody who learns the Torah. It's going to have all the criteria of the Luvavitcher Rebbe. It's going to be some of them know all the Torah, that does all the commandments according to the written Torah, the oral Torah, and he strengthens Judaism in every way, and he tries to bring the Jews back to Judaism, and he fights all of the enemies of Judaism, all these the decadence and the idolatry and the bloodshed, the terrible things. It says, I will find, like it says, Matzati David Abdi. But nevertheless, we know all these details. When Mashiach actually does it, it's going to be a whole new thing we never expected. which this guy's around in the Mashiach, which this is what's called Hesech Hadatz. And these things which are now these things which are now Geharvid, which we have to work on, and we can achieve them only in a way of superficially, the outside. In the future, we'll understand the depth of the Torah, the taste of the Torah, the taste of the Torah. Like it says right in the beginning of Shir Hashem, Yeshakeni ben Yeshikas Pio, says that God will kiss us with the kisses of his mouth. That same mouth that gave us the Torah back then will feel not just the words, but also the kisses of the creator of the universe. Everyone will feel tremendously important and happy with the Bias Mashiach Tzidkenu. Nothing is happier than that. And that's the whole essence of what Judaism is, what Mashiach is. And there's no holiday that expresses it more than in the holiday of Sukkot and Simchat Torah. It says we sacrifice in the time of the temple 70 oxes corresponding to the 70 nations of the world, and that brings blessing to all mankind and will end all wars and difficulties and make everybody concerned only with being connected to the Creator. Creator means building, making the world a better place, improving the world. So, my friends, God willing, I'm going to be going to the Rebbe tonight, and I'll still have my WhatsApp, so you can send me WhatsApp, and I'll have my email. I don't know if I'm going to have a telephone. If I do, I'll have some sort of a weird number that I get over there. But God bless you all. Have a meaningful and blessed Yom Kippur. God should answer all of your prayers. And you'll see the prayers. Every prayer is just talking about Mashiach. There in the world should be a good place, and the non-Jews should realize that there's a creator that creates them, etc. And on Sukkot is a happy holiday. Everybody should be happy. Go out in the streets, do Lulov and Etrog with other Jews. I went this Rosh Hashanah, and I went into the streets of Miron. I was at Miron, where Rabbi Shimon is. The first day I went into the streets of Miron, and I also listened in the houses if people were gathered together, and I asked them if they wanted to hear a shofar. Like I said, there must have been 200 people that they did not hear shofar. I don't know, but maybe let's say 180 or something. I mean, just approximation of them were women, and another 20 were men. That was the first day. The second day, I went to this place called Safsufa, which is about 40-minute walk or something from Miron. And I went there and I sounded the shofar. And there, almost all of them were men. And they were gathered in houses. And there must have been maybe 100 men that I sounded the shofar for. There was a big soccer game going on. And there was 35, maybe more people. There were the people in the audience also. And I went from house to house. The point of the matter is that amazingly, people really want to do the commandments. And you don't have to have any special qualities. You just have that commandment and you say, want to do Lulov and Etrog, and people do it. And you're never too old, never too young. I was in Crown Heights, I saw little kids, the 13 years old, with their parents, of course, standing by the side, and asking people if they were Jewish coming out of the subway. And they were just asking everybody, huge people asking, no one, everybody was smiling, oh, I'm not Jewish. So throw caution to the winds. Any negative thoughts, disregard them. Just think about the Rebbe, what the Rebbe wants, and go out and do mitzvah, be happy. And we'll all be dancing together with Mashiach now. And God willing, I'll still make some of these short videos and try to put them up. And we'll see, maybe Hashem will give me the time and we'll continue a few classes. But 8 o'clock in the morning, there won't be any classes. But you can look in the past classes and you can see the ones that I put up there. God bless you all. Have a good day and a good holiday with Mashiach now. Yechi Adonenu, Moenu Rabbeinu, Melech HaMashiach, L'olam Voed. Shalom u'bracha. Maybe I'll tell you a story. Huh? What do you say? Story? A short story, why not? Tell you a short story. This is one of my favorite stories, but I'll tell you the story. There were two Chabad Hasidim that were, this must have been in the 20s or whatever. They were in Tajikistan. Stalin sent people to these weird places, in Siberia. Tajikistan, I guess, like the weather is really terrible there in the summers and the winters, extremes. In any case, these two poor Jews, they were there in some knocked out town. And one of them said to the other, I made a sukkah. How did I make a sukkah? He said, well, I went back of one of these big buildings and I saw that there was this old shed. And every day I sort of, I looked inside of the shed, I saw that there was nothing in there. Nothing, there was just old, weeds and everything. So every day I took off one of the boards from the ceiling and I put, when I took that all off, so I put, schach on. Nobody noticed. And I sort of, pressed down all the weeds there, and I brought a little sort of a makeshift table and a couple of, boxes with seats, and we'll make us. So we'll do it tonight. We'll do it really quiet. Nobody will see us. It's in the back of this building, so like in the alley, and nobody will even notice, and we'll do it really quick. So, okay, the other one said, okay. The names of them are written over here, but I don't remember. I think one of them was Proust, and the other one was somebody else. Mochkin, I think. Anyway, so so one of them said, okay, listen, I'll bring the wine and the bread and some vegetables, and you bring, some fish, or if there was no meat, they bring fish and bring also, some little vegetables. So, okay, so that's what they did. They met in the Sukkot is in the middle of there's already a moon. It's the middle of the month, so there's already a moon. It's sort of bright. And I don't know, maybe they had a candle lit there or something. However it was, so they went in, and one said to the other one, "Listen, I got a confession to make. I got two pieces of bad news, and one piece of good news." So the other one said, "Well, what do you mean?" Said, "Well, the bad news is that I couldn't find any wine." No, okay, so that's, but the good news is I have vodka. So the other one said, listen, I have ulcers, I can't drink vodka. So you'll drink the vodka. No, it's a holiday, you have to make it, kiddush, you have to make it, we'll make kiddush on vodka. He said, once again, you said there were two bad things. What was the other bad thing? Oh. He said, I made a calculation, I figured out which building this little booth of ours is, in the back of which building it is. It's in the back of the KGB offices. KGB was everywhere. KGB, whatever is NKVD, they had all these different things in the KGB offices. So I said, oh, that's pretty bad news. Said, but listen, we'll make it really quiet and nothing's going to happen, and we'll just in and out, and that's it. So, okay. So they both made kiddush on vodka, and they went out somehow, they washed their hands for bread, and they sat down. They didn't have much to eat. They had a couple little pieces of fish or something like that. Meanwhile, but the vodka, they had, a lot. So the vodka starts kicking in, and they try to sing quietly, but it doesn't really work. And they start getting more and more sort of affected by the vodka. And as they do, the sukkah becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. And the world becomes smaller and smaller until there's just two Jews and God sitting in the sukkah, and there's no world, there's no anything. And they're singing and they're happy. All of a sudden they hear a knock on the door. So they open up the door, and who's standing there? Ibrahim. Ibrahim was like the superintendent of the house where they lived. So, a nice guy. Oh, hi, Ibrahim, how are you? So he said, what are you guys doing? So they said, oh, it's a birthday party. So, oh yeah, really? Whose birthday is it? So both of them, each one points to the other one. It's his birthday. So this Ibrahim says, listen, I know it's your holiday. And that's why. So they said, okay, so you know what? There's nothing wrong with our celebrating. Said, well, I'm here, I'm bringing you greetings, holiday greetings. I said, oh yeah? Said, the holiday greetings from Camille. They heard the name Camille and their blood froze. But Camille, he was the head of the KGB. He was the head of the KGB. So I said, Camille, wow. I said, yeah, he's my brother-in-law. I was just with him in his office, up there in the KGB offices. I said, tell me, you couldn't make your little booth somewhere else? You couldn't make your holiday somewhere else? He said, well, anyway, he heard the ruckus down here, and he opened up the window, and he looked down, and he saw where the noise was coming from, and he turned to me, and he called me to the window, and he said, Ibrahim, you know what's down there? I said, no, I don't know, it sounds like a couple of drunks, He said, no, that's those Jews. That's the Jews. I said, okay, Jews can also get drunk. What's the problem? He said, no. He said, you know why they're drunk? Why are they sitting in that little booth? He said, I know a little bit. He said, this is their holiday. They're celebrating this holiday. And that's why they're sitting in the booth. That's the reason they got sent to Siberia. They get sent to exile. Their punishment was because they're doing their commandments. They're doing their religion. He said, I want you to go down there and tell them. I said, listen, come on, let them have a little. There's nothing wrong with them having a holiday. He says, listen, told me, I want you to go down there and I want you to tell them something. He said, listen, Ibrahim, I want to tell you something before you go down there. He said, those Jews know that I hate them. The Jews know that the whole world hates them. The Jews know that the whole world has been hating them for thousands of years, and they would love to destroy them, and they know that I would love to destroy them. And what do? They're happy. They dance. I want you to go down and tell them that I'm jealous of them and wish them a happy holiday. He said, if it was me in their situation, I would keep quiet. I would hide. Said the Jews, they're rejoicing in such a situation. Go down and tell them a happy holiday. I would go down myself, but it would wreck their whole holiday. They would see my face, it would wreck their whole holiday. Ibrahim said, that's why I'm here. But do me a favor, keep it short and leave. They closed the door. He said that was the happiest. After they got out, they came to Israel. Said, I think one went to America. Said that was the happiest holiday that we ever had. We threw caution to the winds, and we were happy with God. And God repaid us big, that the whole world recognized Yakiru v'yedu kol yeshvei tevel. They recognized that the King of Israel, the God of Israel, he's the King of the world. And that he just wants to benefit everybody. He's creating everyone. Have a happy holiday. And this Sukkot, we should all be together in Yerushalayim, Ir HaKodesh, Achshav, now with the Rebbe, Melech HaMashiach. Chag Sameach. And see you, God willing, after the holidays. Maybe a little bit in the holidays also. Shalom uvracha.